What is a childhood coping method you unknowingly developed only to realize later that it wasn't normal? Shutting down emotional responses and forcing myself to not care about any perceived loss. Apparently, it made it pretty annoying to discipline me because I would suddenly stop caring about anything that was threatened to be taken away. Nobody really taught me how to properly cope with loss when it started happening, and I guess my response was emotional repression. My dad got around this by going after things that weren't mine. I started hiding library books under my mattress after he tore one up, and the school threatened to revoke lending privileges. Constantly trying to preempt or defuse situations. Always checking the mood of the room. Pretending laughter to lighten up my parents' interactions. Having to laugh and smile every time you make a comment to your parents, so they don't immediately start getting offended over everything you say. It's exhausting. This is weird to type out. My parents were emotionally and often physically neglectful and cold. I was expected to stay out of the way and raise myself within the household. No mealtimes, bedtimes, bath times, have you done your homework? Nothing. I was on my own. Attention was always negative. We lived way out in the country, so no playmates in the neighborhood, and my only sibling was 10 years older and the opposite sex. I became the type of reader that would disassociate completely into books. I took lessons from them on how to behave, think, act socially, Anyway, I had this weird mental game from a young age. I must have gotten it from a book somewhere. I would pretend I was in an orphanage, one of those old-fashioned ones, kinda like from Annie. The school bus dropped me off there. Then the evening was regimented. We lined up for dinner. Then we all sat and did homework. Then we had a church-type service. Then we had baths and bed. I would pretend that I was one of many children doing these things. I would lie in bed and imagine myself lying in a row of identical twin beds. I realized as an adult that this was really weird. I'm not sure if my fantasy was about matching to someone or complete anonymity. I think you craved routine and a schedule. You were able to make one for yourself, which is great. I'm sorry your parents sucked. Trying to think mentally prepare myself for every possible horrible thing that could happen to me, so that if it did, I wouldn't be blindsided. It didn't work. I want to add that my mother died in a freak accident when I was a boy and I was blindsided. My coping mechanism was to prepare for situations where a friend or family member is killed out of the blue, etc., so I wouldn't be caught off guard again. It caused me severe stress and the inability to relax ever. I am older now and therapy has done wonders for me. Having 3 or 4 different responses ready for every conversation in advance just to prepare for what might come. My therapist told me this isn't as normal as I thought it was, and apparently other people don't prepare this much for regular, everyday conversations. Or shutting down because you have to work out the perfect response in real time. And no, screaming at me for being quiet will not make this process go any faster or help to resolve the mind-numbing panic that triggered it in the first place. Assuming people are mad at me based on their vocal tone. Overanalyzing just like me. Welcome to the club. Blocking out all background noise to avoid emotional damage from whatever's going on. I know that. It's like flipping a switch. It's most noticeable to myself when I'm watching a movie and a scene comes on that triggers some kind of memory, and so you mentally switch from being in tune with the movie to staring at the box on the wall while the pictures on it move. Completely removes all emotion. I learned to lie rather convincingly. I was petrified of getting in trouble for the smallest things that I learned to hide quite a bit. I had such high anxiety as a kid. Saying I am sorry all the time. Yes, and when someone says you don't have to say sorry and or gets mad at you for saying sorry, you get in a loop for saying sorry, for saying sorry, for saying sorry, for saying sorry. Nowadays it's a lot better than it was. But whenever I feel bad I just keep repeating it. I can cut people out of my life and stop caring about people at the snap of my fingers, and I do it far too often to people who sometimes may not deserve it to keep myself safe. I can too. It's scary sometimes, honestly, how easily I can go from, "You're the best," to, "Fuck you for eternity." Dunno if it was a coping mechanism so much as a survival tactic. I walk on the balls toes of my feet all the time. If I'm barefooted, my heels never touch the ground unless I'm standing still. Quietness was the objective. I do this too in terrified coworkers when I materialize behind them like a ghost at the copy machine or cafe counter. They called me the ghost, and I laughed along, but kept to myself that I also knew where the exits were and what was between them and myself at any given moment. Both of my parents had terrible tempers and 3 out of my 4 grandparents were abusive, of every kind you could name, people. You are absolutely right to call it a survival tactic. Maladaptive daydreaming. Much to my surprise, at 29, I discovered that most people can't escape into their minds and go on adventures with full storylines, world building, characters, etc. I can't have an aspiration or a dream because I don't want to disappoint myself. Like, I can't even say that I am gonna get a good grade on a specific subject out loud, cause I am scared I will disappoint myself. Same thing with other things in life. When I apply for a specific college, I will just do it and ignore it until I get a result, because I don't want to get my hopes up and end up not getting accepted. I can't even have a New Year's resolution cause somehow I think I would fail, and I would rather already expect that than get my hopes up and fail. I am scared of being disappointed in myself. Looking for signs, such as microexpressions, about what kind of a mood the other one is in. My therapist told me not all people do this, and I do it a lot. He also told me I developed it because I was always on the lookout on the mood of my often angry, drunken stepdad. Eating too fast. I remember noticing this even as a child still. I was always done first, and I never outgrew it. Neglect and abandonment issues. I do this too, and I don't really know why. People comment on it all the time, but I don't really know how to stop doing it. As soon as I start eating, it's like a blackout or something, and I don't come back to reality until the food is gone. Cleaning or doing things behind the scenes for my family so they're always happy, life goes smoothly, and my life is serene. The latter isn't the case, unfortunately. I'm exhausted and always on edge. My house is spotless. Everyone is surprised my house is so clean when I have 3 kids ages 2 months, 4 and 5. It's totally a coping mechanism. If I'm upset or stressed, I clean, and with a baby I'm stressed a lot. Comes from my dad throwing epic fits if the house wasn't clean and tidy. He would yell that he has 4 daughters, so why aren't things clean? I thought if the house is clean, it's one less thing to be yelled at about. I'm slowly learning that it's okay to leave dishes in the sink or an unmade bed. Mess still makes me extremely anxious, but I'm doing my best not to pass it on to my kids. Hiding in the closet. Apparently I do something called disassociating, where I get so deep in thought that I don't hear anything else around me. Drives my wife nuts. Also, just found out I have binge eating disorder. I eat in secret sometimes and overeat. Comes from my childhood and not knowing where my next meal would come from. On my way to resolving both. Not doing anything till the last minute, so I feel pressure to do it, and when I finish doing it I feel useful. Gotta be careful with this one because it's a stone's throw away from. It doesn't matter anyway. Listening for the smallest sounds. Before I was old enough and had enough money to move out, when I was a teen I could hear the faint sound of the garage door opening because it would always squeak when it opens, and then I would bolt upstairs to my room because the garage opening meant that my mom was home. I can distinguish her footsteps easily. I developed a hypersensitivity to sound because of her. Making my voice as monotone as possible to prevent people, my parents, from picking up on any tiny hint of emotion. My parents would lose their shit if I had a tone or sounded upset in any way. It's taken years and years of practice to regain some emotion in my voice again. I talk to myself, like full-blown heartfelt conversations. I'd keep things to myself because I would get in trouble for saying the wrong thing. I lied because people couldn't know certain things. I daydreamed because it was better than reality. I observed the room, their gestures to know if it's safe to interact. I don't say things about myself because I can't trust easily. Laughing at pain. If I get hurt, I laugh. I do it because I don't want the people around me feeling uncomfortable. I do it even when people aren't around. It hurts. Making a joke about or laughing at unacceptable behavior as a means of trivializing rather than confronting the behavior. Mine was food hoarding. I'd sneak food and water into my room for when I had none. Only realized this year that most people don't have stashes of food hidden around the place. I'd pull out my eyelashes. Reading. A lot. It was my only form of escapism that didn't get me in trouble with my parents, even though I was the good kid who I was constantly walking on eggshells around. I also stashed my snacks and favorite toys around my room because my brother, who is on the spectrum, was constantly trying to find them and steal them. And most of the time, if I tried being nice and shared a toy or game with him, he would wind up breaking it somehow. So, I hid stuff to preserve it for longer, which just made him ransack my room all the more. I have issues with coveting my favorite things now because nothing was sacred. I just start walking with no destination for hours. 6 hours is kind of normal, but it takes something big to get me to do those long walks. Comfort items. I currently sleep with a tie fleece blanket, comforter, 27 pounds weighted blanket folded over twice, and 5 throw blankets. Doesn't matter the temperature, they're all on me every night. I have 5 stuffed animals on my nightstand just in case I need them. Hug your kids, folks. Not sure if this is a coping mechanism exactly, but I used to hit my head against the wall to give myself pain to punish myself for mistakes I made. I felt I needed to do so to atone and move forward or something. It probably wasn't the brightest idea. Now I'm low-key scared I could have or did give myself brain damage with how frequently I used to do it. What childhood coping habit did you later realize wasn't normal? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.